Safe to Serve family, first-time viewers, welcome to this midday power surge, your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez. Now today, Jonathan Berry, who now is officially in the U.S. Department of Labor as the solicitor. We call him Mr. Sunday Law, Mr. Mark of the Beast. He promised day one that he would promote, push, enact Sunday worship by law, Sunday rest by law in the various states. He said that, and now he was nominated and officially confirmed. You wouldn't believe what he just did. And today, stay tuned. We are going to break this news. I have Marie Diaz with me from Eyes on the Times that has come to officially break this news. Marie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Pastor. It's always great to be back.
Let's get right into it. So what are you focused on? These current events based on end-time prophecies that relate to Jonathan Berry. Talk to us.
Well, Pastor, we're seeing the convergence of three very prophetic individuals representing, three entities coming together. We're talking about the labor unions. We're talking about Jonathan Berry, who represents Project 2025. And we're also seeing the Pope, who represents the Catholic Church. They're all working in tandem to bring about what I believe is going to be the papal agenda of legislating Sunday laws.
Let's get right into it. I want my audience, Safe to Serve, and the first-time viewers to realize something here, that these dormant Sunday laws are now being revived. They're now being revived. And what we think would be years in the making in the future, these events will transpire very shortly. You watch this, what we will cover today. Marie, take it away.
Right. So I think that as we begin, it's important for us to lay a foundation, about the unions and how they're going to play an essential role in these last days. And so I'm going to begin just by referencing these things. Of course, you can do your due diligence and go back and study these things for yourself. But we know that the Bible tells us in James chapter 5, verse 1-5, that there's going to be a labor crisis in the last days. And of course, verse 8 tells us that it precedes the second coming of Christ. And of course, we also know that the experience of the Hebrews, especially the Exodus, typifies our journey heavenward. Of course, you can reference 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11 with that. And of course, when you look at the Exodus, again, there was a labor crisis that preceded the very Exodus, and of course, there's some clear parallels there. Now, Sister White further augments this for us. And there's, of course, a couple of references in the Spirit of Prophecy. I'm referring to the one in not Christ Object Lessons, but Country Living, where she says that the trade unions will be one of the agencies that will bring upon this earth a time of trouble such as never was. And so, Pastor, and of course, I think about the Bible study that you just recently had on this past Sabbath, where you discussed the fact that we are living in the final generation. And so if we, in fact, believe that we're living in end times and that this is the final generation, then we have to know that there's going to be some sort of labor movement based on the Bible and the Spirit of prophecy.
And just to add to that, the fourth commandment, based on what you just said, and the scriptures say, based on the fourth commandment, the Sabbath issue is linked to a labor issue. 6 days shalt thou labor, do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. So we can expect the counterfeit Sabbath to be connected to a labor movement, Marie.
Correct. And so now let's jump right into this. And the first thing that I want to do is I want your audience to understand how interlinked, how intertwined the Catholic Church is to organized labor. So let's take a look at this first article here. And it says, why organized labor is still a Catholic cause. It says Catholics have historically played a major role in the U.S. labor movement. Of course, they talk about how it's evidenced by the fact that many of the prominent leaders of some of these labor labor unions have been Catholic. And of course, this article talks about the fact that they make reference to Pope Leo the 13th and his social teachings. And it further on goes to say how in his encyclical that he endorsed the importance of collective bargaining to promote the common good. And of course, anyone who follows this channel, we've done a pretty good job of showing how the common good is related to Sunday laws. And so it's clear, based at least on this article here, that there is this link between the Catholic Church and the labor movement. And so as we proceed, again, you're going to be able to see that a little bit better. And, Pastor, it's not hard to understand why the Catholic Church would endorse the labor movement, because we know that it's the people, the grassroots movements that's going to come together, and they're the ones that are going to be crying for a Sunday law, which is something that the Catholic Church already endorses.
And for those who want the biblical reference for that, I'll give it to you. Number one, you go back to the Exodus. In chapter 3 of Exodus, it was the people who cried out to God for deliverance because there was a labor issue going on in Egypt. They were oppressed. If you remember, when God called Moses, he said, Moses, come on, I'm going to send you down to Egypt and to speak to Pharaoh to deliver, set my people free. Why? The cry of my people have come to my ears. The people cried out for deliverance. So in the counterfeit, the people cry out for Sunday worship by law, just as in the genuine, the people wanted rest. And chapter 5 of Exodus and verse 5, that word rest, it means Sabbath. The second reference is Revelation 13. Verse 14 is the people who cry for the image of the beast to be formed completely. And verse 15, Sunday worship by law. Worship on Sunday or be killed. Marie.
Yes. And so let's take a look now at this following article. And this is very telling, even just by looking at the headline. It says Rerum Novarum 2.0. It says Catholic labor advocates heartened by Pope Leo's direction. Now, Pastor, we just literally did a presentation a few weeks ago where we were showing how history itself is repeating, right? And here we see that there's this article that's suggesting that there's going to be another Rerum Novarum, right? 2.0. At the same time that we also have another Pope Leo who has begun his pontificate. So you can't tell me that history isn't repeating itself. Literally the exact same thing, right? The article continues. It says, when he took the papal name Leo the 14th, it was widely suggested by Vatican commentators that the former cardinal, of course, was signaling. And of course, when you continue reading this article, he confirms these conjectures, and he revealed himself that the reason why he took the name was because of the historic encyclical Rerum Novarum, which addressed the social question. And so this article, again, Pastor, confirms the fact that Rerum Novarum is the agenda of the papacy at this current time. And so, of course, as we proceed, you're going to see this emphatically.
Friends, I want you all to pray for two things right now. Number one, yourselves. And number two, pray for my guest today, Marie Diaz. This lesson and the news she's breaking is highly significant. And we were to be live several minutes ago at the appointed time. And the enemy is trying his best to thwart, hinder what's happening on her side with technology. And it's through technology why where she is, she can be broadcasting now live with us. So pray that God fix the issues of her devices there, internet, etc., so we can all receive this lesson today. It is potent. It's a life and death message. So Marie, just claim Psalm 46 and verse 10. Be still and know I am God. Proceed.
Amen. Amen. So, Pastor, let's dive into this. And what we're going to do first is we're going to take a listen to a video clip. And you're going to see in this video clip that the Pope is putting forward his agenda through the labor unions. So let's take a listen to this first clip, and so that you can see exactly what's taking place.
Here it is.
The Chicago labor leaders have been working alongside the Catholic Church on worker rights. Pope Leo has made the dignity of workers as well as immigration his priorities. And those labor leaders had a rare opportunity meeting one-on-one with Pope Leo. He gave them a mission to take back to Chicago. These are the men and women who lead thousands of union workers in Chicago, the Teamsters, the machinists, healthcare workers, and more. At the Vatican, they received a private audience with Pope Leo today. He's an advocate for the dignity of all workers.
I encourage you to continue to advocate for society to respect the human dignity of all people.
Yes, Marie.
Now, it's interesting that the very first union that was mentioned in that video clip was Teamsters. And that's important for you to bear in mind as we're moving forward in this presentation. The second thing I want your audience to take note of is the fact that the reporter says that the Pope gave his marching orders to the unions to take back to Chicago, right? And so, Pastor, it's clear what is driving the labor unions, and it's the agenda of the papacy.
My time?
Yes, sir.
Marie, Chicago? Safe to Serve International, first-time viewer, Chicago. 2 quick points. This present Pope hails from the city of Chicago. That's where he was born, Chicago. Number 2, Chicago was the birthplace. It was ground zero for the labor movement in 1886. Third point, it was in 1888 when Senator Blair was promoting a Sunday law, moving its way in the Senate in America, 1888. And that bill was connected to supporting and promoting the issues of the labor union. Look at this right here. It's right there, friends. Senator Blair, Sunday Bill, 1888, with the labor unions. And then it's in that same time period, the Washington Post now reminds us that the Seventh-day Adventists, including A.T. Jones, who went to Congress and defeated Senator Blair's Sunday Bill in Congress. And from that day forward, Americans have labeled Seventh-day Adventists a cult. Why? Next paragraph. Because the Seventh-day Adventists refuse to keep Sunday and promote the Sunday law there in Congress. And now you're telling me another news report is saying Rerum Novarum 2.0? And the Pope that was alive in 1888 was Pope Leo XIII. And we have Pope Leo XIV. The same movements, same issues are now repeating. So what will they call us? SDAs? And what will be the next step? You mean prosecution, persecution? Saints, it's time to implement the 5 keys of survival. It's time to get ready, remain ready, get others ready. Marie, take it away.
You know, and Pastor, even in just thinking about some of the things that you just mentioned, I thought about the fact that there are many individuals who almost think that we should totally disregard what Jonathan Berry is doing and the fact that he has made suggestions about legislating a Sunday law. And it's interesting because, again, when you go back to the 1800s and you look that there was one prominent figure, of course, there were others, who were behind him, but there was a prominent figure who actually introduced the legislation. So could it be that Jonathan Berry, too, in effect, typifies the work that was done by Senator Blair.
Senator Blair. Powerful. Henry Blair. Yes. Continue, Marie.
Right. So now we're going to take a look at another significant event that just recently took place. And, again, this kind of flew under the radar, and by happenstance, the Lord revealed this. And so I want you to take a look at a post that was placed on the official Facebook page of the Teamsters, the union, the labor unions. And as you're looking at this post, I also want you to pay particular attention to the date in which this was published. This was published on September the 30th, 2025. And of course, it's really really lengthy. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm just going to pull out a few points here. It says in a first of its kind, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters hosted a special event on Tuesday, speaking of the 30th, celebrating the legacy of Rerum Novarum and the shared work of the Catholic Church and organized labor. And of course, this was presented by Sean O'Brien. So let's just pause here for a moment, Pastor. So now the roles have essentially reversed, right? Because remember, we initially saw how it was the papacy who brought the labor unions to the Vatican. And so now you have the you have the labor unions are bringing in Catholics into their very atmosphere, right? And the point, right, is so that they can discuss Rerum Novarum, right? And so, and of course, obviously the shared work with Catholics. Did you want to jump in here?
No. Continue, Marie.
All right. So the post continues. It says, with the recent election of Pope XIV, there has been renewed interest in the legacy of Pope Leo XIII. Of course, they talk about Rerum Novarum and all of the things, the social teachings. But I want you to pay particular attention to the fact that they're stating that this encyclical was the very instrument, the tool that laid the foundation for a relationship between the Roman Catholic Church and the organized labor. So let's put this succinctly, right? In other words, they're saying that it's imperative that we revisit the encyclical Rerum Novarum because that document laid the foundation for a relationship between the Roman Catholic Church and the labor movement. So, Pastor, could it be that this is the purpose of them revisiting it now? It's because they want to cement, to solidify the union between the Catholic Church and the labor movement.
And the mistakes that were made in 1888 to not get that Sunday law, they're going to make sure they correct those mistakes in 2025 and beyond. Exactly so. And based on great controversy, page 588, we are told that the Protestants in America will be foremost in stretching their hands, long story short, to unite with the papacy. So we must look for movements that are bringing about this unification. And the labor union movement, workers union movement, is doing just that. And when this takes place, they will trample upon our liberty of conscience, and they shall repudiate every principle of the U.S. Constitution and make propagation for papal falsehoods. So once they unite, they'll propagate papal falsehoods. What is papal falsehoods? There are many. One, Sunday rest, Sunday worship by law. Marie, continue. We're here.
Yes. Course. And so we're going to continue looking at this post here. And I want you to notice how they, again, are talking about this Catholic social teaching. It says, especially now, Rerum Novarum is worth revisiting and remembering as a guiding light for working people. So, Pastor, there it is. The union just identified their playbook. And so they're essentially telling you that they're going to use this encyclical Rerum Novarum as their guiding light for the working people. And let's be clear that, because I want to put this in very clear language, Pastor, the largest union they're telling you that now they are an extension of the Vatican. That should send chills through the spines of people who understand, end time prophecies. They're regurgitating the exact same thing. Do you want to jump in here?
No, that's clear. So now we have the arm of the papacy in America working. That's clear. Let that sink in, my friends.
Right. And so now we're going to look at another article, and this is going to tell you about this event that was mentioned. Yes.
The reason why I paused is because I was hoping these words would be emphasized one more time, and I'm going to do it. Remembering Rerum Novarum is the guiding light. Hold on now. Are we not told that Catholic principles will be taken under the care and protection of the U.S., and that this is going to lead to national apostasy, which will lead to national ruin, Are you telling me in America now we're being led by the documents and policies of the Roman Catholic Church? That means Rome is the head. Rome is leading. Rome is the head. And America now has become united with Rome based on this context. That is startling to say the least.
It is. It really is. But we want to get some more insight into what just recently took place at this meeting. So I came across an article from Financial Times, and the headline says, "The Ascension of America's Catholic Right." And it goes on to say, it says, "Catholics and labor groups are reemerging as a powerful force in the new political landscape." And of course, they're going to rehash, some of the things that we just mentioned, how they had this meeting, at the Teamsters headquarters. And the discussion that took place there was with regards to Rerum Novarum and also uniting with the Catholic Church. But we're going to move on because, brothers and sisters, this next point, put your seatbelts on, because what we're going to show you again, as we said at the onset of this presentation, is that the Vatican, Project 2025, and the labor unions are all connected. Take a look at what this article had to say. It says, Jonathan Berry, who has recently been confirmed as the Department of Labor's chief attorney, was there too as an organizer of the event. Lord have mercy. We have to pause there, right, Pastor? Because I thought this was simply a meeting between the labor union and the Catholic Church. But now it just told you that Jonathan Berry, the Sunday law advocating representative of Project 2025, was the facilitator and the organizer of this very event. And of course, we're going to show that he also is a practicing Roman Catholic, but you can see, Pastor, how all of these events are converging.
This is the cowboy Catholic ambassador working. This is Kevin Roberts working through Jonathan Berry. And Jonathan Berry is clasping hand with the labor unions because he's a part of the Department of Labor, the chief attorney for the Department of Labor. And with the other hand, he grasps Popery and bring them both together in America. Mr. Mark of the Beast, what he promised he would do day one, he's fulfilling day one. That is potent. He made a promise.
He did.
And is now fulfilling that promise. Continue.
Lord have mercy. I hope we're seeing this. The article continues, and this is speaking in reference to Jonathan Berry. It says, a Catholic convert, and of course, they talked about the fact that he wrote a piece last year advocating for Sunday laws to allow labor to rest on Sunday. And I thought this was so interesting. I'm not really sure why they felt the need to put this there, and maybe it's just to confirm what we have always known. It says he was wearing a small amount of what he calls Catholic bling, right? Showing who his allegiance is to, including a tie featuring St. Michael, of course, the archangel, triumphing over the devil. And now, like I said, this should make us tremble. And Pastor, it's interesting because I searched high and low. I was trying to see if we could find a video of this event to see what the talking points were. And, of course, this was a closed door event, but I am so glad that, based on the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, we can understand why, because the Sunday movement is making its way in darkness, right? But this gives me greater appreciation, right, for those books that's on the shelf back there, right? Because it tells us, the Bible tells us that prophecy is a light in a dark place. So I don't even need to be in the room. I already know what's going to take place. And we can already start to see the fruits of this event, this meeting that just recently took place. And so just one more thought, Pastor, and then I'll let you come in. Can you imagine, the darkness that is going to enshroud those who have cast off or refused to read the prophet's writings, right? Unfortunately, I believe that if you aren't studying, if you aren't taking the time to read the spirit of prophecy for yourself, you're going to wake up when it's too late.
You're on a roll.
By God's grace, right?
Let's reach into the jaws of the behemoth, break his teeth, and rescue some souls with this presentation. You're on a roll. Continue.
Now, the article continues. It says the organizers of the Teamsters event hands out copies. And of course, they're talking about the encyclical there, right? It says before settling in for a prayer led by a priest. And of course, the crux or this entire presentation was around the encyclical Rerum Novarum, as you can see in this article here. And so I also thought it was important for us to take a look at some of the pictures. I couldn't find a video rather, but I was able to find pictures of this event. And so while I'm discussing these points, I want you to just take a look at some of the individuals and the pictures from this event. And I want you to take note of the fact that you have priests there. You have Sean O'Brien, who's, rubbing shoulders with these priests.
Marie,
yes, sir.
Just take your time, because as you are explaining, so as folks are watching it, they can see it clearly. It's on a loop. So continue, Marie. Take your time.
Okay, so yes, again, you see that Sean O'Brien, which is the head of the Teamsters Union, is rubbing shoulders with the various individuals. I only wanted to highlight certain pictures. The pictures I wanted to emphasize was one, that he was with the Catholics, priests. The other is the fact that there were several shots of Jonathan Berry, of him praying and doing all sorts of stuff, reading the encyclical. But then there was also a picture of Josh Hawley. And I'm not sure if you all are very familiar with him, but he is a religious proponent, right? And is very for this religious movement. And he was also there. And so, it's just so that everyone can see, all of these various individuals that are playing an essential role in this movement.
Before you move on, let me wait until it gets back to Josh Hawley, because I believe that's where you're going next. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's pause. That is Mr. Sunderlaw right there, Mr. Mark of the Beast, Mr. Berry. And here, that's him. On the left of the screen, that's Josh Hawley. On the right, the Teamster President Sean O'Brien. Now,
Yes.
Marie, before you move on, I want people to really think about this. Since they are doing this in a public forum, imagine the conversations behind closed doors.
Yes.
Generally speaking, the intricacies of a confederacy is not done in open meetings, because the agenda might be exposed. Not sure who is around. So if they're bold in doing this at this conference, imagine who met behind closed doors and what the conversation was. Now, based on the current event, we can know what went on because we have Bible and Spirit of Prophecy. Marie, do you recall what date Jonathan Berry was nominated? Was confirmed?
Yeah, it was October the 7th.
And this man has called a meeting between the labor unions and the papists. Again, what he promised, he's delivering on that promise. As if while we have the chair of the Department of Labor, right? We have the chief lawyer, Jonathan Berry. But who is making the moves to connect the labor union and the papacy? It appears, based on the current events, is not the woman, I forgot her name, Chavez, right? But it is Jonathan Berry, the lawyer.
Correct.
SDAs, this should cause us to fall on our knees. Lord, help me to get ready and remain ready. Marie, back to you.
Now, I want to augment that point that you just made, right? You just showed us, because remember that post that came from the Teamsters was posted on September the 30th, several days before Jonathan Berry was confirmed. Pastor, do you remember how we discussed the fact that Jonathan Berry had a discussion at the Catholic Information Center, I believe it's called, CIC, right? And he was discussing what he was going to do on day one before he was even nominated. Before he was even nominated for the position. How did he know?
Not before he was nominated, before he was confirmed.
Yes,
because you can be nominated and not be confirmed.
Correct.
As if they knew already. Our agenda and personnel being put in strategic offices will be done regardless of what anybody else say. It will be done. Marie.
And even more so, remember that when he was a part of President Trump's administration, prior to, he was in a different position. So it just goes to show that they know well in advance. We're only catching up to what they're doing. But by God's grace, God is going to be able to show us these things. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how, as if what we presented wasn't enough to prove that prophecy is being fulfilled, that the labor unions are taking it up a notch. And so we're going to take a look at this next article here. It says, Republicans invite Teamsters president to testify on labor laws. Now, this wasn't just any Republican lawmaker. This was, again, Josh Hawley. And I mentioned that earlier when you were taking a look at the pictures. The same lawmaker that was just seen in those pictures that was present during this meeting of organized labor that was organized by Jonathan Berry between the Roman Catholic Church and between the labor unions, has invited a Teamster president to come and discuss the fact that we need to introduce new labor laws before Congress. I mean, Lord have mercy. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. So let's just take a look at this tweet that Josh Hawley put out recently. And I'm just going to read the headline there. And I want you to see the terms of endearment that he uses. And then we'll play a small snippet of the video. It says, "It was my pleasure to welcome Sean O'Brien, my friend and Teamster president, to testify before the Senate today." So do you see how there's a direct connection there? We can go ahead and play the clip, Yvonne.
Here it is.
Pleasure to introduce my friend Sean O'Brien as a witness this morning. He is the general president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Many of you have heard Sean testify before this committee in the past, in past hearings, but I thought I might just say a word or two more about the man, a little bit more than perhaps his job title conveys.
So, Pastor, when I look at this, when I think about this video, right, and I see how well laid this plan is, you know how I look at it? There's a line here, and I want to make sure everyone sees this. We had the Pope in the Vatican, right, who is telling the labor unions what they should do, right? But then you have Jonathan Berry, who is, again, a proponent of Sunday laws, working with Project 2025, working together, who has a U.S. sitting lawmaker within this meeting. This lawmaker then has this Teamster representative come before Congress. There is a direct line from the Vatican all the way to the U.S. Congress. That I don't even know what else to say, Pastor. I'll let you in here.
I'll say it. So we might not see the Pope present, but he has his advocates in the meetings.
He does.
It's all orchestrated. Marie, pick it up.
Yes.
Let's go.
Right. And so now we're going to take a listen to two clips that came from this hearing. And I just want you to hear first, this first clip, he's going to discuss the fact that we need to introduce new labor laws. Let's take a listen to that.
Clip one.
Congress has not updated labor laws for nearly 100 years, but clearly the workforce has changed. We need new labor laws. We need labor laws that work for workers, unions, and businesses, making the United States competitive in a 21st century economy.
Mercy. Clip. Mercy.
And, just in case you missed it, the head of this hearing is telling you that we need to introduce these new labor laws, right? And isn't it funny? Right on time, Pastor, you alluded to the fact that we have Rerum Novarum happening again. We have another Pope Leo. It's like all of these things are happening right on time, and that's because it's prophetic.
And what did Mr. Mark of the Beast, Jonathan Berry, wrote in the manual Project 2025 about new updating the labor laws?
He did, correct. Sunday law.
To insert Sunday rest, not just for rest, but worship by law. Tell me if the dots are not being connected. So not just a chief attorney of the Department of Labor saying this, but a congressman and men promoting the same. Do you want clip two now, Marie?
I do, but I just want to preface this, right?
Okay.
I want to say that if you missed anything in the presentation so far, do not miss this point here, okay? I want you to hear the head of Teamsters, which again represents 1.4 million members, echo and re-echo the Pope's agenda before Congress. You know, it's one thing if he went there and didn't disclose that he had this meeting, but he was bold enough to be able to go to Congress and tell you that this is what we're involved in, and the Catholic Church is also behind us. So take a listen to this clip here.
As if people are too busy idling. Watch this.
Last week, the Teamsters hosted a special event celebrating the legacy of Rerum Novarum and shared work of the Catholic Church and organized labor. Rerum Novarum was written in the wake of an industrial revolution. It reminds us that humans are not instruments meant to be ground down and discarded. The economy must exist to serve humanity, not the reverse.
Mercy.
Lord, help us, right? But you know, Pastor, I want to engage you a little bit because I was thinking about this because sometimes maybe I'm not articulating things very well. If you were the devil's advocate, right? And if you wanted to deceive God's people and cause them to continue sleeping as if we aren't living in end times, right? What would you do? I'm going to give you two options here. Would you have one individual go before Congress representing 1.4 million members, stand before Congress re-echoing the Pope's agenda? Or would you rather have 1.4 million individuals stand outside of Congress, right? Telling you that they want to use Rerum Novarum to legislate, to determine how they're going to move forward, right? But you know what, Pastor, but you know what the thing is?
Are you going to let me? Will you allow me to respond?
Yes, please.
You want to engage me?
Please, Pastor.
Okay, continue. Or do you really want? Was that rhetorical?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'd love to hear your opinion.
It sounds rhetorical. It sounds rhetorical. Give me option B.
Mercy.
Give me option B. Continue now. That's your answer.
But listen, though,
as a matter of fact, give me option A and B.
But you know what the thing is? Absolutely right. It's the same thing, whether it's one individual representing 1.4, or if you have 1.4 million individuals calling for, it's the exact same thing. And I think more people would wake up if there were that many people, labor, unions, going before Congress telling us we want the papal agenda. But because maybe it doesn't look that way, we're going to go back to sleep.
3 points.
This
Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3 points. Number one, if it is an individual at Congress, that's under law from the federal level. If it's 1.3.4 million workers, it's under law from the state level. How do you want it? It's the same thing. Federal, state, they all bind together. Point number two, think about this. What happened during the Exodus is the people at large that called for it. What's going to happen in the last days is the people that will call for it. And thirdly, who said crucify Christ, give us Barabbas? The people. But we had both because the chief priests first said crucify Christ. Put Marie back on. I want to see her face when I'm talking here because we are engaging here, right? Give crucify Christ. The chief priest first said that. Watch the order, Marie. Crucify Christ. And then they went to persuade 1.3 million, if you're following the connection. The people now to say what? Crucify Christ, give us Barabbas. So it's both. But now we're seeing it's happening in the same order. The same order first, use the leader. Use the chief attorney, lawyer for that Department of Labor, Mr. Berry. And then the people, it's both. Teamsters, it's both. Last point, Marie. Can 1.3 million Teamsters shut down America?
Of course they can.
Can they shut down America to a grinding halt?
Yes, most certainly.
Gasoline, diesel, no more trucks on the highway. Walmart, beer, Target, you name it. Farmers market, you name it. Everything can shut down overnight. Teamsters, are there unions for pilots?
Of course.
railroad, UPS workers. Come on, they can shut down America overnight unless the demands are met. Now, while they have good demands, the devil always unite enough falsehood with truth to make it plausible. That's exactly what's happening. Marie, take it away.
Correct. And when I think about all of these individuals, right, he represents, like we've been saying, 1.4 million members, right? So you mean to tell me that everyone that is a part of this union is Catholic? Do you
No.
see why we've been admonished in the spirit of prophecy to avoid the union? And the reason being, it's because it's a majority rule. When you're in a union, it's what those at the top determine for the rest of the individuals. So if you are part of the labor union, I just want you, especially if you're a part of Teamsters, I just want you to know that they are forwarding the papal agenda. Now, Pastor, I'm going to transition here just a little bit, okay? Because recently, with all of these things that were transpiring with Jonathan Berry, I kind of did a deep dive into the spirit of prophecy to really get an understanding of labor laws. And I came across a quotation when I first read it, I really couldn't reconcile it, but praise God, later on, I was able to understand it. I want you to take a look at this quotation that's coming from Manuscript Releases, Volume 4, page 72, paragraph 1. She says, the condition of things before the flood has been presented to me. The same binding up in unions that exist today, she's making a parallel, exist in Noah's day. And when I thought that, I was like, there are labor unions in Noah's day? But then it dawned on me, she's speaking in principle, right? In principle. Now, like I said, initially, I didn't really understand it. But when I continued reading, I saw that in the same book on page 85, paragraph 2, it made sense. Listen to what she says. Cast out of heaven, Satan set up his kingdom in this world. And of course, she goes on. He uses the same power that he used in heaven, the influence of mind on mind. Men become tempters of their fellow men. So just watch this line here, right? And so what he did before, he's going to be doing again. She says, and actually, I don't want to miss this next line. She says, the strong corrupting sentiments of Satan are cherished, and they exert a masterly, compelling power. Under the influence of these sentiments, men bind up with one another in confederacies, in trade unions, and secret societies. And then she says that God will not tolerate this. So I hope that you're understanding what she is essentially saying is that these trade unions are being influenced by the same sentiments, the very same thing that Satan did in heaven to deceive unfallen angels, right? And also prior to the flood. And he's using this influence of mind upon mind. We're not going to be able to think individually. And so this coming together. And so when the Lord showed me Psalms 83, it made perfect sense. And I just want you to take a look at what she says. The Bible says in Psalms 83, verse 2 through 5. I'm not going to read all of this, right? It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy holy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. And while I'm reading this, I want you to consider this context. Consider it in end time events, how this is going to repeat itself. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate, right? Synonymous with trade unions, secret societies, right? They are confederate against thee. So back to my previous quotation, it's the exact same thing that's happening. And so this movement that you're watching, this is the movement that is going to rise up against God's people. And again, one more thought. If you do a deep study on trade unions in the spirit of prophecy, she talks about how labor unions are going to become violent. They're going to kill people. She talks about how they're going to be marked men who refuse to go along with their policies. And you can see this movement, and it's all based on what Satan is doing.
Marie, you're on a roll. I don't want to break that trend. I'll give you one statement that comes from social studies. Herd instinct. Go figure. You all. Marie, continue.
Right.
And I'm going to let you flow because I'm going to come back to this in my closing comments. Marie, go ahead.
One last point briefly, and then I'll digress. So I want you to understand that Satan is at the head, right? And it's interesting that Satan is using the Vatican, which literally means divining serpent, right? So Satan is influencing the minds of the Catholic leaders. The Catholic leaders then are influencing the mind of the union leaders, and the union leaders are influencing the minds of the labor union. And so it's that same influence of mind upon mind. And this is what God has objected to. And so this is the last segment that I have at least.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to draw a juxtaposition here. Because when these workers begin to say, we need this policy, this agenda to be enacted by law, in the agenda are going to be good terms, good things that they want. And those of us who are Bible-believing Christians will understand that a part of this agenda is the mark of the beast. We know that. So as a result, we cannot support it. Do you know what they would say to us? If you don't, that means you don't care about us. You don't love your neighbor. When was that also repeated? If you don't go along with these tyrannical mandates, you don't love your neighbor.
Same spirit.
During the pandemic.
Correct. Same
During
spirit.
the pandemic. And it was herd instinct. People began to act as if they didn't have a brain, that they cannot reason rationally and make personal, correct, spiritual, biblical decisions. It's coming again. And that's why we must fortify the people by giving them this present truth so they can be ready for what is coming. Take it away.
Yes. So again, in this final segment, I am going to prove by God's grace that Jonathan Berry is not only the force behind this movement, uniting the Catholic Church and the labor movement together, in addition to the fact that he is, the lead attorney for the Department of Labor, but that he is also laying the foundation for the introduction of Sunday laws on the state level. And of course, many of you have seen these video clips before, and so we're not going to really belabor the point, but I thought it was imperative that we included this into this presentation so that you can see the line here. So let's take a listen to this first clip here, please.
What are you on day one taking to the new Secretary of Labor?
Something I really encourage. I don't see a big, it's harder to see a big federal role for this. I think this is more a question of state and local law, is reinvigorating, where possible, Sabbath rest laws.
Okay, Marie, when you sent this to me, I took liberty to add to it because some folks are just seeing this for the first time.
Okay.
So let me play 2 more clips from the same speech.
Certainly.
Here it is.
Really literally dating back to Constantine.
Yes.
And his recognition of Christianity in the Roman Empire, that you've had a pretty consistent tradition in Western civilization of taking Sunday off from commerce. And
so Marie, that's important. Let's get the third clip and then you can continue, where he specifically said, not only Sunday rest for workers, but Sunday worship. Here it is. Just liberty I'm taking here.
And having a time not only it's not merely from rest in the sense of abstinence from work, but it's rest for time with God, time worshiping God. It's rest for time with community, and even in between is time
Marie,
with family.
Yes.
Back to you.
Sure. And so, of course, all of those points are essential, right? And he is telling you, true to what he said, as you stated earlier, Pastor, he said on day one, I'd like to say even before day one, he was already working on this plan and has things on foot. So imagine what is happening behind the scenes. Again, don't want to belabor the point. We want to listen to this next clip, and this is imperative that you listen to what he says. He is going to tell you clearly that we are not looking to introduce a Sunday law on the national level. We want to introduce Sunday laws on the state and the local level. So take a listen to this following clip.
And again, Sunday laws, not just for resting, but for worship. Worship. Continue.
Correct. One of the interesting proposals that you've laid out in Project 2025 handbook from Heritage is stuff around the Sabbath. What are some of the ideas that you have there?
Yes. So this is. It sounds controversial. In many respects, it is a return to something that basically always everyone ever had. And it's specifically the idea of encouraging Sabbath rest through discouraging commerce on the Sabbath. The proposal that's in our book is amending the basic federal overtime law, Fair Labor Standards Act, to require that overtime be paid for all work done on the Sabbath. So this is, I think this is about as far as the federal government could properly go in this space, but it would be an encouragement and inducement to rest, but really to kind of coordinate commercial activity for the other 6 days of the week.
Marie.
And we're going to play one more clip. And again, this is so that we can solidify the point that they are directing their attention to the state level. So let's listen to the next clip. And in the next clip, he is not speaking specifically to individuals. He's speaking to the state representatives, telling them what they can do in order to bring about these Sunday laws. So take a listen to this following clip.
Lest people forget it. We will coordinate rest up on one day of the week and coordinate work on all the other 6 days. So what about Sabbath keepers? There's no accommodation. This is Mr. Mark of the Beast talking. Here it is.
When should states use this power to check corporate power? This is where prudential judgment has to come in. I don't have bright line rules to give you here, but I want to lay out some guideposts, some categories of state actions that are likelier to be prudent applications of state power to balance corporate power. And another one in the collective action space that I'm fond of, call it the Chick-fil-A rule, would be to revive Sunday closing laws and carve out a space under which commerce does not intrude. Very well settled that this is within a state's authority to do.
Marie.
Now, it should be clear to the audience that Jonathan Berry is playing devil's advocate on both sides of the fence, right? Because he is harnessing the power of the Catholic Church and the labor unions while occupying the position as solicitor of labor, while also instructing the states on how they should be able to introduce and also legislate Sunday laws. I mean, it should be clear.
Marie, this man just said it's already on the books. So what he's saying is, what we're pushing today is already on the books. What we need to do is to revive, and revise. Revive it and revise it. Revive and revise. This is similar words as Revelation 13, verse 15. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship should be killed. Think about that. If you give life to something, it's either dead, comatose, or it needs to be revived. So the Sunday laws from the past must be revived and revised. No accommodation for Sabbath keepers. Marie,
Yes.
if we can, there's something else I think you're going to add. Could we leave that for tomorrow?
Certainly, of course.
Because this is a spiritual meal that is very substantive already. Let's leave that for tomorrow, and possibly we can reiterate and add. Marie.
Certainly. Well, then the last thing I'll say, should I make reference to that final post there?
Yes.
One other post. And I think it's important for us to take a look at this because already the Teamsters have made mention of the fact that they're cognizant of the Sabbath, so much so that they referenced it in one of their Facebook posts. So take a look at this Facebook post here, and I want you to listen to what they said in this post. It says, today is day 7 for our striking Rise members, the Sabbath, a day of rest. I rest my case. I mean, you should be able to see clearly all of the elements are in place. And so, brothers and sisters, whatever you're going to do quickly. That's what Jesus told, Judas to do. It's time to wake up. Pastor, I yield.
I want to close here. Not only we see Jonathan Berry pushing for this, not only do we see Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters promoting Rerum Novarum. This was the subject matter of their conference. Labor Union members, Roman Catholics with Jonathan Berry, Rerum Novarum 2.0. Kevin Roberts is promoting Rerum Novarum. Everybody, breaking news. He's calling for the Sabbath quickly.
Rather than simply opposing loneliness, atomization, and secularism, we should observe the Sabbath.
Okay, move on. I won't play the second clip. Move on from that. In Rerum Novarum, paragraph number 40 and paragraph number 41 state the states must promote Sunday rest and Sunday worship by law. Watch this. Paragraph 57 of Rerum Novarum. It says the people must be urged to worship on Sunday by law. Urged? My friends, urge means to compel. It means to force. Marie, any closing words?
The last thing that I want to say, Pastor, I was reflecting on a message that you preached years ago. This was back when you were in Florida. I can't even recall the message, but it was one that has stuck with me since then. And what you were focusing on was the fact that Peter didn't hear the cock crowing. He didn't hear the cock crowing. And, when, of course, and I'll, make this really brief, Jesus literally told Peter just before the crisis what was going to take place. He told him that you will deny me thrice before the cock crows twice. And Pastor, you were harping on the fact that Peter didn't hear the cock crowing. When he heard it? He heard it when it was too late. It was too late. What am I saying, brothers and sisters? The cock is crowing. For those that want to hear it, those that can see it, it's here. Lord, have mercy upon us. Should we not hear it and we end up hearing it when it's too late?
There's nothing more to say. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you. May he that hath an ear hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. May we, by your grace, urgently implement the 5 keys of survival. We thank you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Marie, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Safe to Serve International first-time viewers, share below what point stood out to you. And if you're really moved by this lesson today, share it with somebody else. God bless, and by God's grace, I'll see you all tomorrow for Midday Power Surge. The protest continues. The Reformation continues. Maranatha.